Happy New Year to all of you. And I'm sure we'll have the occasion to share in the breakup groups. Today, we're expecting about 20, 30, 40, 50 people. We never know about this, but it's the first one of this year. So it's the regenerative talk of the year thus far. There's none better. And today we have a fantastic special guest. And many of you know her. It's Alexia. And she's written a fantastic book called The Resilience Quotient. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. We'll spend about a small half hour, or no, not say, let's say 15 minutes just hearing why she wrote it, how she wrote it. Then you can all write questions, ask questions, get to understand resilience a little bit more. Then we'll go into breakup group. Then we can do whatever we want, because we can get to see each other. That's also why we're here together. And then we'll call it a day. So it's going to be a lunch break for everyone after this. I read the book, Alexia, and the first thing is, because there's an hour, we actually have to put in a 5-minute break according to the Pomodoro methods. So
yes.
So welcome once more. So Alexia, this is a topic that I love. Many people don't know I'm actually a psychologist, and all this cognitive stuff totally interests me. But maybe the first thing is, Alexia, why did you write this book?
So thank you, Christophe. And hello, everyone. Very nice to see so many familiar faces around. Well, the question, why do I write this book, is really linked to my desire to probably share my enthusiasm for the topic. 4 years ago, I wrote a first book called The Resilience Drive. And my intention then was really to share how science could demonstrate the benefits of some common sense practices, but it was very much focused on personal resilience, intrapersonal skills. It was super practical and basically really explaining the reason why it makes sense to do some stuff that people sometimes forget to include in their day-to-day. And a few years later, I felt there was a need to share how this could be integrated in our leadership. And of course, as we talk about leadership, it has always to be viewed and considered within a certain context. And in today's world context, considering so many challenges at stake, I'm convinced, and I have no doubt everyone here is also convinced, that as leaders, we can play a role. But I also felt that we can play a role, and it will be much more impactful if we are resilient, and if we are also able to stimulate resilience in our respective teams and organizations. So the focus in this book is a bit less on the intrapersonal skills, but more on the interpersonal skills. So around ourselves and beyond, including also the impact we can have on the environment at large. Yeah. So this is really what's enthused me to write the book.
So when we were talking before, you said the piece that gave you most joy is especially the piece around environment, that link between resilience and environment. And obviously we as regenerative leaders are also working on that bond between self, others, and nature. So tell us a little bit, why did that give you such particular joy?
Well, first, for me, it was obvious that I had to dive deeper into that topic of environment, although it is a book about leadership, because I really believe that as a leader today, we cannot ignore these environmental challenges. And I also feel like when I understand things better, I'm more motivated to consider a few adjustments. And to be very honest, writing about the environmental challenges taught me a lot because I had to go much deeper into my knowledge about these environmental challenges. And the more I was going deep into the topic, the more I felt actually the hope that, well, actually there are so many things happening. While we can feel the anxiety around us, we should also foster the hope that things can change. So this is the reason why it created joy inside myself, also because I felt there was a really nice connection between, as a leader, being well aware about your personal ecosystem, but also being well aware about the external ecosystem. And this is the link with the environment.
So more technical question, you speak about resilience level 1, resilience level 2 in the book. And to give all those who present today, you will, because you're present, you have a special gift. We will send you the book. So you'll know more what we're talking about. If you leave your address with Josie, then we'll send it to you. But tell us a little bit about resilience type 1 and resilience type 2.
Well, usually resilience is commonly understood as the ability to bounce back from challenges. If you ask anyone, that's typically the one definition that pops up. And that's resilience type 1. It's indeed, I'm confronted, I'm challenged, and I find in myself the resources to bounce back to baseline. What interests me, and I think what should interest us all, is to cultivate resilience type 2, which is not only bouncing back, but actually bouncing forward. It means growing from the challenges, learning from the confrontation so that you can actually progress and grow individually, but also collectively, as a team, as an organization, and hopefully as a whole society. So I believe that what we need now all as a society is activating this resilience type 2.
Yeah. And I see Benoit is also there. He's always talking about integral resilience. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because what is that?
Yeah, well, integral, you can look at it from two different angles. On the one hand, it's recognizing that as a human beings, we are much more than a brain. We have our physical dimension, our emotional dimension, this mental, cognitive dimension, and also this spiritual dimension. So for me, it is really obvious that if you understand the importance to mobilize all of our resources, it means an integral approach, mobilizing your body, your heart, your mind, your spirit to be well equipped and activate that resilience. Now, if you look at it from another angle, integral also means recognizing the impact you can have on self, on others, and on the environment. So when we talk about integral impact, it includes these multiple dimensions, self, others, and the environment. Does that respond to your question?
Yeah, it's important that everyone else gets it. But we also speak about, and you have already started mentioning it, why resilience now? Why is it now so important? Why is it such a topic?
I think it has always been a topic, although the word itself has not been used so commonly until recently. When I started being interested in resilience, it was 12 years ago when we lived in China. I met with the founder of the Resilience Institute and we decided to join forces, and we started the Resilience Institute in Europe. At that time, 12 years ago, that was definitely not a very common topic. Although some people felt that it was indeed something that would be important for people, but also for organizations. And of course, with COVID, suddenly the word resilience has become a buzzword, which is probably good because it helps people understand that on the one hand, we do need to cultivate resilience competences to be well equipped to face whatever challenge might present beyond the pandemic. And on the other hand, we understand as well that if we are to make a change, to impact the world positively, starting with ourselves, our team, our families, organization, we need to be resilient. Because when you're resilient, you're a best version of yourself, and it probably helps to accelerate the changes that are needed.
Mm. And then a last question before we open the floor is, resilience together. Is that something that we can do together?
I hope so. Yes, I believe so. But as very often it starts with self. So I believe there is no shortcut. If we understand the importance to create a resilient society, a resilient organization, a resilient team, you cannot avoid starting with self. So this is really the starting point. And at the same time, considering again what is at stake in today's world, individually, there is only so much we can do. It's only collectively that we'll be able to face these challenges successfully. And this is the reason why it is so important as a leader to be conscious about the opportunity we all have to cultivate resilience collectively, to create an environment that favors resilience, to make people understand the levels of resilience, and as a team to see what can we do to feel collectively well equipped and resilient, so that we can not only bounce back from the challenges that present, but we can really grow from these challenges and pursue the mission that is ours, and that can be different from one organization to the other. But it has also to serve the mission and the purpose of the organization.
Fantastic. So I see there's finally questions coming in. So the first question comes from Violetta. Violetta, why don't you just ask the question directly to Alexia?
Okay, thank you. Hello, and great topic to engage over. I think it has a great importance for our decisions in the future. And I have a very sort of a burning question that I keep trying to answer by myself, but I would very much appreciate your view. How do you see the correlation between regenerative concepts and circular economy concepts? And that is the first question. And the second one that I would also like to ask you is, how do you see the EU, in which phase of resilience are we, and which strength would you point out to build on in order to continuously improve?
Wow, these are great questions. Maybe there are really two different questions. First one, the connection with regenerative economy, circular economy. And again, I really believe that regeneration starts with self. So if we understand the importance to act in a regenerative way, we have ourselves to respect our personal resources and regenerate sufficiently so that we can really progress. And let me give you a specific example. We are about to start an important program with Nespresso. And Nespresso, and it's not really known enough, I believe, but they do quite a lot in sustainability, in circular economy. And they understand that if they want people to adhere to this regenerative strategy, they need to be well equipped, and they decided to integrate in the leadership program a comprehensive module about resilience, because they completely believe that if their leaders will be more resilient themselves and are able to cultivate an environment of resilience in their respective teams, that will help them to honor their sustainability purpose. So that's maybe one specific example that shows that when you're able to cultivate these resilience competences at individual level, it helps to honor the purpose at organizational level. Now, considering the question about Europe, I think it comes back to leadership. And when researching for my book, I went quite deep into the European Green Deal, and I was really impressed to see, well, amazing, we have a fantastic roadmap to move forward and really go in the right direction with the environmental challenges that we have in the world. So we might really question ourselves, what is missing? What is it that we do not move a bit faster? And of course, I'm not an EU expert, but my belief is that the missing point might well be to make people more resilient themselves. Because when you're more resilient, you become more aware, more open and more attentive to what is at stake. And of course, as well, when you have leadership that drives you in the right direction, that may create the bridge between what we know needs to be done and actually doing it. Because I believe that ideas are interesting, concepts are great, but at the end of the day, what will have a real impact in the world, and it starts with our respective zones of influence, it is how we translate some of these fantastic ideas into concrete actions and behaviors. And again, at European level, I believe the ideas are there, and actually there are really fantastic actions that could be taken, but the missing point is probably leadership in the respective countries to transform that into decisions. I don't know whether it is a sort of an answer to your question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Violetta.
So Randall, the man with the broken leg. Randall, you have a specific question for Alexia too.
I do. So my question was really thinking about your clients and what are some of the specific pain points you see. But then I have to say that you mentioned this broken leg that I got the other day, and I'm still being hospitalized for that. The acts of kindness and compassion have been amazing. And I have a very positive outlook, and there's all kinds of screws and hardware in my leg now. I'm looking at it, but I'm ready to bounce back. And this talk is helping me. But what also is helping me is compassion and love. And I just wonder if either the question in the chat or this topic of compassion and love, if there's anything that you might want to respond to on that. Thank you.
No, thank you, Randall. And seeing you in that environment breaks my heart. But on the other hand, seeing your smile fills me with joy. So responding to your question, I would say usually the clients we work with, they tend to have already that sensitivity around the topic. They understand that if they want to grow the organization, they need to grow people. However, usually they feel a tension, and they feel a tension between performance and care. They know they need to care for people, but at the same time, they have these short-term objectives, usually financial objectives, and they need to perform and report. And what we believe, and our point of view, is that as you build resilience in people and in teams, you can both serve performance and care. And when I use the word care, it's caring for self, caring for people, but also in a certain way, caring for the planet. Again, because I'm convinced that when people respect themselves, when they respect people around them, when they are more aware about the impact of their behaviors, they become a bit more attentive about the impact of their behaviors on the environment at large. So for me, compassion and care include self, others, and nature and the environment. And as you asked about the pain point, it's really this tension between we need to perform and we feel we need to care at the same time. And there is a wrong belief, I believe, that makes them feel it might be opposed, while we believe we can reconcile both. We can absolutely have performance and care go hand in hand if you equip people well enough so that they understand how to use these competences.
Fantastic. And Marcello has a naughty question. I like Marcello. Did you want to ask your naughty question?
Yeah. So my naughty question is like this. So we have people like Donald Trump and Putin, and they're pretty resilient leaders. So how do you distinguish between, say, resilience for a positive purpose and resilience for a less positive purpose? And just to finish, in a way, what Randall was saying, what is the energy, what is the drive that makes leaders do things? And if these drives are positive, like compassion or reverence or love, you get a very different outcome. If the drives are, greed or power or control. So do you distinguish between these two sort of, maybe it's two, maybe it's just a spectrum, resilience for what purpose? Thank you.
Yeah, so very good question, Marcelo. It really comes back to the definition of resilience. And in our approach, the definition of resilience includes 4 components. The first one is bouncing back, or let's use the word bouncing forward from challenges. As I said, this is usually the part that is the most commonly used. The second one is growing from the challenges, growing from the difficulties you are encountering. The third one is to be connected. So resilient people are connected to themselves, to others, and to the environment. And when I say connected, it means having a positive impact. And this is where Donald Trump would not fit with our definition of a resilient leader, because he does not have a positive impact on many other people, plus on the environment. And the fourth element is to find flow in your activity. Finding flow means feeling well aligned, feeling like the competence you have meet the challenges at hand, like you can really contribute. So in our definition, a resilient leader is able to bounce from challenges, grow from the adversity individually, but also with his team, being well connected to himself, herself, to the others, having a positive impact on others and on the environment, and find flow in his or her activities, feeling really at the right place, well aligned. So it's not an easy task to be resilient, and it is also not a skill that you can learn and then take. It is definitely a continuous journey. It is something that we need to cultivate, and there will be moments in our life when we feel more resilient and moments when we feel our resilience is at risk. The good news for all of us is that from the research we have at the Resilience Institute, based on lots of data that we accumulated through a tool we use that we call the resilience diagnostic, enabling us to measure and assess the resilience of people and of organization, we can observe that resilience tends to increase with age. So as we get older, we tend to be more resilient, which is encouraging because it shows that indeed life's experiences and confrontation to challenges build that muscle. And at the same time, it should make us be very attentive to people in our respective teams who are actually younger professionals. And I'm sure many of you are working with teams where you have younger people, because keep in mind, these may not be as well equipped as you are. When we look at it on large samples, we systematically see that the younger professionals have a lower resilience quotient, as we call it, or resilience ratio, or resilience score. And for me, it is really a watch point for all leaders here, because it means we need to help these young people to develop these competences that for most of them were not part of the traditional academic programs.
Fantastic. So Emmanuel, I think by the naughty question, your question was answered, except if you had another view on that. So I think, is there any particular more, and feel free to shout out, that you want to ask before we go into the breakout group? Because I mean, as you know, Alexia is a person of action, and she wants us to go out and do some work in the breakout group. So before we, go back and do stuff, is there anyone who still wants to ask something? Okay, great.
Can I, hi, Christophe, can I ask? Just let me put my camera on. Yeah.
Sure.
Let me just, hey, hello, hi. Hi everyone. Hi, Alexia. Just, when you were talking about resilience level 1 and resilience level 2, I think that possibly, I mean, from my mind, from my point of view, and working with multinational companies where, like you say, short-term performance is really, really key. Resilience level 1 is effectively a little bit of sit and wait strategy, but resilience level 2, which is even more required now, it involves change. And it's change in mindset, change in behaviors, and also, and that's, we see that this is the toughest part in business, and not only from making tough decisions, but also trying to convince the people who follow you on that path that these are the right decisions that need to be made. So I would say, very practically, where do you start from? normally to just, build this mindset?
So very good question indeed. And when we work with organizations, that's where they're interested in. They're interested in having people grow from the challenges, feel very ready to accelerate the transformation. And we start very simply by raising awareness. So the first point is to make people well aware about the interactions between body, heart, mind, and spirit, understanding that if you want to change your mindset, actually it may well help to feel energized, because when you feel more rested with a higher level of energy, you tend also to be more open to new possibilities, more optimistic, more creative. So it's really about raising awareness. Then it is about highlighting the importance of rituals, habits, not just for individuals, but also for teams. So we do highlight a lot the importance of being aware about what you tend to do on a day-to-day basis, from morning to evening. And it is really an interesting exercise to do for yourself individually. And then when you have the responsibility of a team, question with your team, what are the rituals that we tend to observe? How do these rituals favor our resilience or not? And this is really as simple as deciding, okay, how often do we meet? How long are our meetings? What do I do when I wake up in the morning? How do I spend the last hour of my day before I go to bed? What are the rituals we have on a weekly basis with our team, etc., etc. So rituals are really important. And then it is about making really regular connection with our purpose. When people are reminded about the purpose of their activities, they tend to be much more engaged to move towards that objective. And very often it is implicit. In many organizations in today's world, purpose has been a subject of discussion, and it exists somewhere. But I can really see the difference in these organizations where purpose is just a nice collection of words on the wall, or whether it is actually something that is used as a day-to-day tool to help people make choices, to assess the different options. And that's where, as leaders, I believe we can make a difference, explicitly reminding people what are the options we have at hand, how do they help us to move towards our purpose. So that's something that I believe practically can be very helpful on a day-to-day basis. When you make important decisions, make sure you explicitly connect it to the purpose of the organization. And then, as I said, being well aware about the rituals you have, the habits for yourself, but also as a team, and make sure that these habits are constructive and help you to function more constructively collectively.
Fantastic. So Alexia, you have the opportunity to make us work. So we're going to go in breakout groups now for 15 minutes. What would you like us to focus on?
Well, as you said, and as I've mentioned as well, I'm very much a person of action. I think it's nice to agree with ideas, but at the end of the day, what matters is what you want to do with it. So what I suggest is that in the breakout room, you reflect about what are some practices, you can call these rituals, habits, that you really would like to implement in your respective teams, whether you have a small team or whether you have a big team, in order to cultivate that resilience collectively. So think about a ritual, a habit, a practice that you could actually start implementing with your team as we start the year, and that could contribute to cultivate resilience collectively. Does that make some sense?
Super sense.
Yes.
Now I'm just hoping that Josine can put us into breakout groups. Apparently I did. Yeah, fantastic. So in the process of going somewhere, you all should stand up, turn around 3 times before you get back to the next session. Right, Alexia? Is that what we should do? So half an hour.
Very good idea, Christophe. Okay.
All right.
Okay, well, I will start the breakout rooms in just 1 second. I know that some people might need to leave, and this is perfectly fine. For everyone, you will receive a copy of the book in your email. This is the email where you signed up with for the event. In case you need it somewhere else, just let me know, send me a PM, I will be here. I'm gonna create the breakout rooms. Now,
Wait, can I see Randall also went around the bed 3 times? No, that's a joke.
And by the way, I can see there are some other questions in the chat. I'll answer them when we are back.
Off you go.
Thank you.
No, I don't know what is this tool you talk about. Tell me about it.
Well, I just learned about it. I think, let me see, it was just in my group.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
No, it's uncertainty tolerance is a really interesting concept. And there's one really lousy scientific test that you can do. It's called the balloon test. But I'm not going to spoil because then the test won't work. But maybe you can see if you can find it. But what is really interesting is there's going to be the 2nd edition of what they call the Uncertainty Expert, which is a interactive documentary series of 3 live documentaries, scientifically supported, and actually a scientific experiment in itself. So you do some of these tests, among which a balloon test. You then look at uncertainty experts and experts on uncertainty, telling you all the concepts behind and how you can unlock uncertainty as your ally to grow into superpowers that you already have. And then at the end, you do their same tests. What they've seen is a huge jump in uncertainty tolerance, which is mega interesting. So look at the uncertainty experts and you'll find a lot there.
Fantastic.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Just a quick one, Christophe, because I had a question in the chat about how can we actually measure resilience? And indeed, as we were just discussing in my breakout room, as we all know, what gets measured gets attention. So if we believe in the importance of cultivating resilience, it works much better when we can measure it. Well, there might be different ways, but at the Resilience Institute, we have a resilience diagnostic, which is a self-assessment. It's an online tool. It's a questionnaire. It takes about 10 minutes to complete. And it is a way to measure individual and team resilience. And what I like very much about the tool is that you have an individual report about your strength, about your points of attention, but you also have a figure. And for many people, figures are really easy to understand. We call it the resilience ratio, and you can track it over time. So this is really a way to measure the progress of resilience for a person, but also for a team. And of course, what is interesting when we do that at organizational level is that we can accumulate data and then observe the trends that emerge in an organization, and therefore then customize approaches and programs that specifically tackle what that organization needs the most. But to answer the question, it's really about finding a way to measure it so that people get more motivated to consider some adjustments in their habits. And when they see that it results in a progression in their resilience score, they are motivated to continue.
Wow.
And I see another question. Is the resilience measure connected to engagement? Good question indeed. Yes and no. Difficult to say directly, but on the one hand, what we can see is that when people are more resilient, they tend to be much more engaged. On the other hand, you can also observe organizations where the level of engagement is really high, but may well be detrimental to the well-being and mental health. And I give you a quick example. I've been working with the World Bank. And at that time, I remember when we started looking at the results of the diagnostic, I had these people telling me, yes, but you know, Alexia, at the World Bank, our purpose is so evident that of course our resilience will be very high. And I had to tell them, well, I'm sorry, yes, you have a fantastic purpose, but unfortunately, it does not prevent you from also having the pressure of day-to-day workload, of having challenging things to handle, etc. And their score was not much higher than the average we could see in other organizations. So for them, it was a wake-up call, recognizing that purpose is fantastic, but it's not because you have a great purpose that you are safe from day-to-day challenges in your work environment. So resilience tends to support engagements, but on the other hand, having a strong engagement towards a great purpose may not really save you from the challenges that most of us are facing in our working environments.
Yeah, I agree, because I work a lot with doctors and they have great purpose, but they're burning out like hell right now.
Exactly. That's a good example.
Yeah. Fantastic. Is there anyone who wants to share before we've got 3-4 minutes about something that they learned in the group so that we can enlighten Alexia? Anyone courageous, brave, willing, enthusiastic enough? Wow.
Real briefly, our conversations, I guess if I could sum it up, it's something's better than nothing. And that some very small things we talked about, little habits, little rituals that we should not forget to use and apply, because that can have that building that tradition, small as it may be, can add a lot of value and to those around us, including ourselves.
Can you give some examples, Randall?
Yeah, I mean, just, the way we open meetings, the way we're engaged in meetings, really seeing the humanness in our meetings, checking in with each other. How are you feeling? How are you doing at some point in the meeting? Doing what Alexia always does, a bit of a stretch, considering the physical, the mental, the emotional, and how we can naturally bring that in some small ways with ourselves. And so that it was closing a meeting properly, which maybe I'll shut up so Christophe can do that.
I will do that. So first, before we go into our last ritual, I want to say that the next roundtable is actually with Randall. And Randall will speak about good dividends and with Steve. So looking forward to that. Randall, I hope you can do it not from a hospital bed. So that's the next thing. So they're looking very much forward. I invite all of you. And I would suggest the last ritual for the last couple of minutes is one that Brandon offered to us. And he says, start a meeting by saying nothing and just look at each other and let the quiet. So I would say let's move and end this meeting with just looking closely to one another, bring your faces closer to the screen, and let's just be quiet for 3 minutes. And you can leave whenever you want to leave. And thank you, Alexia, you were great.
Well, thank you, Christophe. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alexia. Thank you, Christophe and Josine.
Thank you.